All right. Good evening, uh, leaders, colleagues, and distinguished guests. Uh, it is my distinct honor to welcome you to tonight's Unfolding Capacity Leadership Masterclass, a space where visionaries gather not just to listen, but to engage, to grow, and to lead. Tonight's theme, We Need Leaders, is not just a topic, it is a timely call. A call to courage, a call to action, a call to responsibility. Because in every corner of society, whether in government, education, business, or faith, we are facing uncertainty, complexity, and change. And in such times, more than ever, we need leaders. Not just those who carry titles, but those who carry a burden. Leaders who show up not for applause, but for accountability. Leaders who build, who uplift, who sacrifice. We need leaders who understand that leadership is not about position, but about purpose, not about control, but about conviction. Tonight, as we gather, we honor the effort it takes to lead. We also honor your presence here because it shows that you care, not only about doing the work, but about doing it better. You are here because you want to lead with clarity, with compassion, with courage, and competence. So I welcome you. I welcome you as educators. I welcome you as executives. I welcome you, entrepreneurs. I welcome you, pastors, professionals, and public servants. You are the carriers of capacity. You are the hope of your organizations, your communities, and our continent. Let tonight be more than just a session. Let it be a spark. Let it rekindle the fire of conviction in your leadership journey. Because tonight reminds us all we don't just need leaders out there, we must become the leaders we need. I'll repeat, we must become the leaders we need. Thank you for joining us. Welcome once again to the Unfolding Capacity Leadership Masterclass. Allow me for a second just to share the presentation with you. Right there. All right. We are on. You see, I thought, and I said, as I wanted to discuss this session tonight, and I thought to myself, we are living in a time where there's commotion everywhere around us. Earlier today, as I was driving, I was just listening to the radio and they were talking about these tariffs that are supposed to start tomorrow, today actually. And it was very interesting how the conversations were all going around with people just being nervous around the tariffs, being uncomfortable about them. And everyone had their opinion, obviously, about it. Uh, but all the opinions that were there suggested solutions were all because people finally realize where we are as a country and when we are as Africans, that we're actually at a mercy of another country that is miles and miles away from us. So I thought, why not actually talk about the real issues, which is leadership vacancy? Fellow leaders, the world needs leaders. It needs real change makers. It needs people who will cause real changes in the world we live in. But before I go any further, it is Women's Month. I promised everyone that we're going to have a whole month focused to celebrating and to allowing and to giving a space and a platform that we have to women leaders to share with us and to lead us and to impact us and to improve us and to encourage us. And I'm excited about that. We're going to have a number of women that are powerful, exceptional in their roles. And It's very interesting as I think about that because more times I'm asked the question of, are women supposed to be leaders? Is it okay for women to be leaders? Can they lead? And I think that's a ridiculous question. I think sometimes we think of all of these questions because of the cultures that have brought us up and the histories and how we have grown up and all of that. But the reality is that we must ask the first question, which is, are women human? Are they human beings? And if they're human beings, do they have the full capacity that every other human do? Yes, they do. And if that's the case, why shouldn't they lead? I'm so excited because in my line of work, I've gotten to meet exceptional leaders who are female, who are principals, who are circuit managers, who are doctors, who are, campus managers, who are executives, who are founders, who are business leaders, all these different levels that they are in. And they're doing the job exceptionally well. And I think it has been said that for long the world allowed itself to move forward without the leadership of women. But anyway, back to what we're here to talk about, leadership vacancy. I am one person that is very passionate about Africa. I'm passionate about Africa's development. I'm passionate about Africa's growth. I'm passionate about solutions that can actually improve Africa. In fact, I think that we have so much to offer, but unfortunately, we have allowed ourselves to be doomed by the challenges that we face. So I thought, look, let us start this session of needing leaders by going through the realities that Africa faces in today's time. The first reality, I don't want to call it a challenge because when we call it a challenge, we sort of distance it from us. I want to call it a reality because that's the reality we are living in. And the first reality is that Africa is full of poor governance and corruption. It is sad, it is devastating, but it is true. A lot of our countries are struggling with governance. A lot of our countries are constantly at the back foot because of corruption. We are countries which are highly associated with misuse of resources and instability. Those are the realities. We don't live in a country or in a continent where there are no resources. No, we do have resources. We are just misusing them. We are just not using them the way we ought to use them. Poor governance and corruption. Second reality that we face as Africans is inadequate infrastructure. And that makes the cost of business very high and limited access to several resources. As you drive out and you move from South Africa to the just the neighboring countries, you go to Zimbabwe, for example, the roads are not proper. And as such, the cost of doing business becomes high. If you've got a logistics company, it becomes a challenge for you to do business in such a place. It's so interesting how almost every one of our countries have got an airport that is sufficient for us to move from our own African countries into the West or into Asia or into the Middle East, but we have less movement into and towards each other. And I think this is your business as a leader because you're leading in Africa. You're leading in Africa. The third reality that we face in Africa is youth unemployment. And gosh, this is where we find a lot of young people who are graduates. I remember when I was working in hospital and there were posts for cleaners. And it was crazy how they received thousands and thousands of applications. And amongst those thousands of applications, there were people who were holding high qualifications. Some of them held master's degrees. And I thought, wow, we don't have necessarily just a lack of education as a problem. We have a serious unemployment issue and underuse of our youth. And again, as a leader, if you're in this room tonight, this is your problem. You have to think about it. It matters to you. It should matter to you. As a result of youth unemployment, obviously, we've got social unrest and economic strain, high crime, loss of people's personal resources, all coming from one place: youth unemployment. Number four, low quality or low education quality. And I'm going to go deep into this as we go further, but I want to pause right here and say, you see, the challenge with Africa is that, or even South Africa for that matter, is that we have these curriculums that we build, but these curriculums are not somehow translating to solving the problems that we have. And I used to think that maybe the problem is the content of our curriculum. But I've gone through most of what we teach in our schools at basic level and also at university level. And I realized that we do have the right content, most of it. It's just not sufficient. We have a serious lack, serious gap of teaching fundamentals to actual capacitation of the youth that we process through our education system. We lack the fundamentals. We don't have the right attitude. We produce young people who seek employment than seek to build opportunities for others and for themselves. We still are a continent that has graduates of business who cannot run a single business, graduates of agriculture who have not planted or tried farming one thing, but they're graduates of these things. And it is sad. So we have a serious gap. The quality of our education is not good. Maybe we need to start moving from education as a form of just passing to get a certificate into education as a way to solve problems that we live with and within. It's just my opinion. Number five, conflict and insecurity. It's not long that we had the South African army had to call for a return of our soldiers from the DRC because of conflict. In fact, these conflicts continue to happen in Sudan, for example. These conflicts continue to happen. And as they happen, development is not happening. There's displacement, there's disruption of services. Things are not moving forward. And as South Africans who are mostly represented in this group, we think these problems will affect us. But let us start looking into our villages. Let us look into our backyards. Let us look into the small puzzle shops that we visit and start looking and look around and see the crimes that we're facing and realize that these conflicts and insecurity that is happening in the rest of Africa does affect us. But it's not supposed to be so. Number six, weak health systems. It's so disappointing that even in 2025, we still have some of our leaders traveling to other Western countries and Asian countries to access health. Early this morning, there was an interview on SAFM, and in that interview, they were interviewing a doctor in KZN who was a spokesperson of a group of doctors who are unemployed. But we have weak health systems. Patients are still standing in long queues waiting for care in our hospitals, in our clinics, with no doctors, but they've got doctors in our streets who are unemployed. So the weak health systems that we have is not necessarily because we don't have the personnel. So many nursing graduates across our country, in South Africa alone, were unemployed. So these are problems that one could say that they seem manufactured. But again, it matters to you. It matters to us. It matters to us. Number 7, gender inequality. It's so interesting that we still have countries in our continent whose women receive less funding for agriculture or different, how can I call it, different expertise, or, like for a better word, different kind of entrepreneurial agendas. They don't get enough funding just because they're women. What a tragedy. What a tragedy. And as such, we're missing a huge economic contribution from women. And I think that's why this month we would like to have more women voices speak to us. And just this Monday, we're going to have one leader who begins the whole process of speaking to us and showing us women can lead. Number 8, the debt burden. It's so interesting that in some of our countries in the African continent, more money is spent on financing debt than it is spent on actually making sure that there is provided quality education for the people. What a shame. What a shame. And as such, there's less fiscal space for development. There's no finances that are required to do what is necessary. Funny enough, the debt that is being serviced is not necessarily the debt that was worth it in the first place. But that's a topic for another day. Lastly, as a reality in Africa that we live in, is limited regional trade. Do you know that in Africa we have just 15% of trade happening between our countries? Just 15%. But more than 60% of trade by African countries is happening with countries outside Africa. Can you believe that? So we sit here and we struggle with getting things done when just in our neighboring country there's a solution for it. But we can't get it because they're busy exporting that resource to a Western country or an Asian country or a Middle East country. Here's the thing about trade and regional trade that is important. Let's say, for example, you decide now you want to run a private school, just a group of private schools. If you can trade well within the African continent, we've got over 50 states. You literally could have your schools in every state in Africa. And as such, the profitability, the growth, the expertise that develop from there, it becomes massive. But unfortunately, we have limited regional trade. In time like this, we still have, when you're flying to other countries in Africa, you still have to fly out into a Western country, then back into Africa. All because of the limited regional trades. And this affects our economic growth. And again, I understand you may not be an African passionate person about the entire African Renaissance, but this affects you. You are a leader that we need. quickly Africa's potential. We've gone through all the challenges and the realities that Africa is facing. But now let us look into the potential. And obviously, when we look at potential, we have to look at resources. So, number one, quickly, as you can read, abundant natural resources. We don't have a problem of natural resources in Africa. If we use them well, we could have serious industrialization in this continent. Serious industrialization. And therefore have funding for better development and youth employment just by utilizing our natural resources. We are a continent that has the highest number of youth population. Like we have the greatest youth population in the world. That means we are actually sort of a threat to the West and the Middle East and the Asian continents because over time the world is gonna have more Africans than there is any other group of people. But if we don't use that, it's just gonna be that. If we use it fruitfully, then we have increased productivity. All the young people we see in the streets, bring them into employment, have better innovation, have entrepreneurial growth. We have the potential. We can solve our challenges. We have good arable land and agriculture in our continents, in our countries. And if we use them well, food security must not be a problem for us. Agro-industrial development, we can definitely do that. I can just imagine having plants and plants in Africa of different agro-processing, making everything possible, not having to just export our cotton and export our tea and export everything that we have and not make anything. I think if we just tap into the potential that we have, we can do much more and improve even rural employment. Number four, our culture and tourism assets. Man, people love our things. They love our culture. There's something about Africans that's just beautiful because we are colorful. We are different. We embrace who we are. And if there's no corruption in that sector alone, the foreign revenue that we can create, the job creation that we can have, and the global influence would be massive. We have seen that through some of the artists, musical artists that have done well in our different streams. We have the potential. Digital and mobile technology, here's the thing. As it stands, Africa doesn't have all the resources for digital technology and movement into high-tech spaces. But the beautiful thing is this. Most of us, because we have not yet industrialized enough, we have actually have the biggest potential to have a crazy, awesome technological environment. And the potential outcome of that, remote education, digital services, and job access. I look forward to a day where people will study with our universities from across the continent, where students don't get accepted, do not get accepted from university because they couldn't find physical space, where there's remote education available to every student. And Africa can just be a machine of people who are well educated and trained. Again, this matters to you. Africa has an advantage of being strategically placed in terms of its geography. It's right in the middle. It's easy to move to all the different economical hubs around the world from Africa. And that allows us to enhance our trade competitiveness. Fellow leaders, we can transform our continent. We can. Obviously, there's massive renewable energy potential. The weather allows for that. The climate allows for that. So we can be a continent of clean, sustainable energy for industry and rural electrification. We can. And lastly, the continental integration. The AfCFTAs, the African Continental Free Trade Areas. In the time where there are tariffs, I had the president of South Africa speaking a couple of days ago and encouraging all exporters in our country to say, look, we have to consider beginning to do trade within each other in Africa and not just depend on trade of exporting things outside to other continents. If we can just have this free trade area across the continent, imagine the scale. You could literally make a shirt and you can get it sold in Angola. It doesn't matter what you do. You won't be limited by a border. So there is growth. There is opportunity for growth, rather. The question is, why are we not there? Why are we not realizing this? The answer is simple. This lack of leadership, which is what brings us or brings this presentation to you where you are. The real need, ladies and gentlemen, is lack of leadership. It's lack of leadership. We do not have quality leadership in our continent. And I think unfolding capacity is at a pivotal role or can play a pivotal role in transforming the kind of leaders that we have. The leaders who will get up and challenge themselves to think at a bigger scale. Because we need you. We are desperate for you. If you are still here in this presentation, I want you to hear this well. If possible, take even the screenshot of this. We need you. Yes, we need you. Even you who think maybe it's talking to the other person who has a title or the other person who holds a bigger position. I don't care what role or what position you hold, you are needed. Your country needs you. Your continent needs you. They don't have to come and call you by name, but I'm going to be the first one to challenge you and say, hey, we need you. Africa is looking for leaders who will stand up, who will rise up to the challenge. And I think you've got what it takes. You see, here's the thing. When I'm presenting this session and to you, I have this strong belief that you who's listening has got the potential to be the leader that Africa needs. And again, this is not calling for you to necessarily be the next president of a country. It's just calling you to rise up to a level of leadership and personal capacitation and expression that you find yourself serving the best way you can at a level that is bigger than where you are living, you're serving now. Because we need you. We need you to solve our education crisis. We need you to no longer think just for yourself, but begin to think for our continent. We need you to think bigger than your village, bigger than your community, bigger than your area where you're serving, bigger than your company, bigger than your city. We need you to think bigger and to stretch to a level of leadership that can actually solve the crisis that we are facing. We need you. I have a strong belief that God has placed in you the potential that is far beyond what you have allowed yourself to express thus far. We need you. And I'm repeating this because I think at some points in life, we take a lot of things that we've had people say, and we've taken a lot of failures that we've experienced, and take a lot of assumptions from how normal people behave and carry themselves. And we think we are not called for much. We think we are called for little. We think the demand on us is little. It's just so that we can get to the next place. We can get the next salary. We can build the next home. We can just be available and sufficient for ourselves. But I think and I believe strongly that there's more that you can do. With the quality of information that I've received over these sessions, it is because there's something inside of you that has to be expressed to solve the problems that we face as a continent and as a country. Again, fellow leaders, we need you. We are desperate for your leadership. Unless we ponder on that question or on that need, maybe we're wondering, am I the leader that is needed? Am I capable? Is this my space? Is this my business? I just want to be a better teacher. I just want to be a better doctor. I just want to be a better principal. Man, I'm not thinking Africa, man. That's for other people. I just need to be a better pastor. I just need to make sure that the revenue in my business do well. I think that's okay, but that should not limit you from having a vision that forces you to stretch beyond the comfort that you've allowed yourself to settle in. But we must ask the question, what makes one a leader? A lot of speakers have come here and spoke on this subject. And I think let us just revisit it. Let us revisit it and remind ourselves if we are the leader and if we're willing to step up to the leader that we ought to be. What makes one a leader? Number one, purpose. Purpose. Dr. Miles Monroe wrote and spoke in so many of his speeches that the greatest tragedy in life is not death, but life without a purpose. I'd like to add on that, I think, and say that the greatest tragedy is life without knowing your purpose. Because I believe each one of you, when God released you into this earth, He gave you a purpose, He gave you a reason to be. And unfortunately, some of us allow ourselves to live and perambulate the face of the earth without asking, what is my purpose? Why am I here? Why am I here? Why should I continue to breathe? My personal purpose is to unfold greatness from within people, from within institutions, from within nations. It's just to unfold greatness, to tap into it and just unfold it and make you realize how great you are and how great and how far you can go. It makes me happy just to undo that. Again, I didn't say what makes a leader is a position, I say it's purpose. Have a clear purpose. And all of you in this room have got one. You've got one. The second thing that makes one a leader, because we are sure with purpose, everyone has a purpose. So as of now, everyone should be a leader because everyone has a purpose. But the second thing is capacity. Capacity. And this is where now you ought to start taking initiative to develop yourself, to capacitate yourself, to enrich yourself, to charge yourself, as the picture puts it. Because you've got to have the capacity to lead. Maybe as I'm speaking, I challenged you and I made you think, man, I've been playing too small. I can actually play at the right level. Maybe you realized as I was speaking that, gosh, I can do better than what I've been doing. This is your opportunity to capacitate yourself. This platform is there just to add to capacitating you. Capacitating you. Because Africa, our continent, needs you. And it needs a capacitated you. It needs a you that knows what it's talking about. It needs a you that understands the dynamics of the country and the world we're living in. It needs a you that is willing to learn new ways of dealing with things and to unlearn the old ways of dealing with things. Capacity makes one a leader. The beautiful thing about capacity before we go to vision is that it can be increased. It can be increased. There's not necessarily maximum capacity. You can always expand your capacity. You can always do much more. You can always grow to the next level. I think it is sad that we relegate ourselves to be people who live life up until the day we retire from our official jobs and we think that's the fullest capacity. That will be sad. Capacitate yourself, fellow leader. Number 3, what makes one a leader is clarity of vision. A clear vision. And I want to say that with vision, I define vision as, the ability to see beyond your eyes can look, you know. And I think when it comes to vision, a lot of us have allowed ourselves to look and be limited by the hills and the mountains around us and use those as if they're the real horizons. And therefore, we begin to accept to think small, to think little, to think personal. So we think, man, I have made it if I build my home and I have my wife and my husband and my children, and that's it. As long as we have got cars, we can feed each other, and we are okay, then we have done well. But the thing about vision, it expands you. It forces you to have to see beyond the eyes can look. See bigger, see greater, go further. Challenge yourself to see beyond your home, beyond your personal comfort. As leaders, you ought to see at a bigger scale. I have just challenged you tonight to no longer just see as at your institution, to no longer see at your province, no longer see at your country level, but to go further and to think at a national level and at a continental level. Have a bigger vision. Have a bigger vision. Ask yourself, can I fulfill to this level? I believe you can. I believe you can. And lastly, what makes a leader? We said his purpose, capacity, vision, and lastly, its will. Yes, you've got the purpose. Yes, you've got the capacity. You're building the capacity. You're reading those books. You're attending those seminars. You're, expanding the way you see things. You're having a better vision. You're doing all of that. But the last limit to everything is your will. Are you willing to act out on what you should do and what you see? Oh, Africa. Oh, fellow Africans, I wish we no longer become a people or accept to be a people who have great speeches on what we dream of, but who actually are willing to make what we dream of a reality. Not just wish for better Africa, not just pray and desire and envision a better country, a better South Africa, a better province, but actually to have the will to enact, to have the will to do what we ought to do, to have the will to rise up, to have the will to grow to that level, to have a will to influence and think bigger and think scale, to have a will to no longer accept our businesses as successful if they only make enough money for us to buy a car. to have a will to say, look, I'm going to outwork myself to a level where we can scale even to other countries. If you're a business person, scale to a level where we reach to the end of Africa. Have the will for that. Have the will to challenge yourself. Have the will to get out of your comfort zone. Have the will to sacrifice even your old self. Because after tonight, there's a new you that is being born. The one who will lead and lead to a greater extent. I challenge you, leaders. My call tonight is for you to step up. Oh, yes, you got that position that you've been praying for. Oh, yes, you're finally in that role. Oh, yes, you're getting paid well enough. But I'm challenging you tonight to step up. Rise up to a greater level of leadership. Stretch yourself. Be a better leader. Change your way of doing things. Step up. Be courageous. Be courageous. Don't just be a leader who accepts things as they are and be so good at complaining that you're not willing to be courageous to actually step up and solve the problems that we have. Step up. That's my call for you tonight. Step up. Be a leader that solves problems at the levels that you are in and the levels above. Step up. And please get rid of mediocrity. Please get rid of accepting that things cannot be solved, because they get solved by only those who are crazy enough to believe that things can get solved. So step up. My second call for you tonight: enlarge your vision. To step up, enlarge your vision. Enlarge your vision. See bigger, see greater, see at a wider scale, see massive, see beyond the eyes can look. Desire for a greater impact, desire for a greater influence. Listen, fellow leader, you are more than what you look like. You're more than what you have accomplished. You're more than what you have done. In fact, all that is in your CV is in the past. It's time for you to write a new one. Enlarge your vision. Enlarge your vision. 3, capacitate yourself. That's my call. Capacitate yourself. Develop yourself. I think we had a guest few months ago, Miss Faith Neno, and she said we must no longer outsource the capacitation of self. We must no longer let other people be the dictators and the ones that control when we should be capacitated. Let it be our agenda to be capacitated. And I'm going to repeat that tonight. Make it your personal agenda to capacitate yourself. Buy those books. Attend those events. Expose yourself to those opportunities of learning and growth and networking. Just this Saturday alone, I don't know how many women events are happening across the country. If you're a woman, you want to learn, you want to grow, participate, go to those places, learn, network, grow, capacitate yourself. The world needs you, a leader like you, but a better you, but a better you. And lastly, my call to you, fellow leaders, is to take ownership. It's high time that we no longer be people who take the victim position, but we take the I am in charge position. I am responsible position. I can actually solve this problem. I should be coming with a solution for this challenge. Oh, yes, we know the challenges of politics. Oh, yes, we know the challenges of connections and so and so and so and so. But to make the real difference, it needs somebody who's going to take ownership. Somebody who's going to say, well, this is my country as well. This is my continent. My children are going to live in this place. My great grandchildren are going to grow up in this area. I'm going to take ownership because they ought to grow. I'm going to take ownership. I'm going to make a difference. I'm not going to wait for somebody. You know, when you read scripture, there's a part where the scripture says, who will go for us? Whom shall I send? And I think, God, here there are people attending this unfolding capacity masterclass. God send them. Let them take ownership. Take ownership of your development, take ownership of your growth, take ownership of your impact, and take ownership of increasing the impact and the extent of your influence. It is not enough for you to influence where you are. Keep influencing beyond that. Rise up to the challenge. South Africa needs you. Africa needs you. We need you. We are desperate for your leadership. We are desperate for your leadership. Oh, be irritated. Be irritated. I mean, as I close, and I need to ask this question. Aren't you irritated by how things have been in our country? I mean, before we even go to Africa, aren't you irritated? Aren't you irritated to hear people crying of corruption every left, right, and center? Aren't you irritated? Aren't you irritated that the picture of poverty is still a black man and a black woman, and the picture of success is still a white man and a white woman? Aren't you irritated? Aren't you irritated that when a black man succeeds, there always has to be questions around it because corruption has taken root? Aren't you irritated? Aren't you irritated that we have accepted in our schools that 30% will be the pass mark? Aren't you irritated? Aren't you irritated that every single day decisions are being made to allow standards to be lowered for young people to not be better? Aren't you irritated? Aren't you irritated? Aren't you irritated that our young people don't have role models? That there are few people to look up to relate to learn from, to grow with? Aren't you irritated? Be irritated. Be irritated when you drive on those roads with potholes and there are people who are seated in those seats of leadership who have no leadership. Be irritated and step up. Enlarge your vision. Capacitate yourself. Take ownership and cause changes. Because until we're irritated, nothing will change. We'll always find a way to go around it and make it okay for ourselves. Accept every low standard that keeps coming to us, and we just say, look, it happens. Look, it's part of life. Look, it's the end time. Look, this is how it is. I don't think that's all how we ought to be, especially when we are leaders who are as capacitated as you are. We need you. We need your leadership. We need your expertise. We need your excellence. We need your ability. We need you. And the distinguishing factor, fellow leaders, will be your attitude. Will be your attitude. Are we going to look at ourselves as change makers? Are we going to look at ourselves as people who accept the status quo? Are we going to look at ourselves as people who ought to desire and to work and to function at excellent levels? Or are we going to accept ourselves that, well, this is the best we can do. This is how far we can go. I am only a person, and I can only do this much. What attitude are we going to carry from tonight? So look forward to all the women who are going to be sharing with us from next week. I'm just asking us, be willing to transform our attitude. Be willing to transform our attitude, to learn from the best, to grow to be the best, to unleash our potential, to challenge ourselves, and to go for the highest level of who we can become, because we can, and we are called to greater than we have accepted thus far. I am sorry, leaders, because I'm not going to make you comfortable. I'm not going to celebrate when we can do better. My job here was just to challenge you and to remind you, we need you. We need you. I'm going to end it there and open it up for questions and comments in the meantime.